Hi, welcome back. This is Judy, and we're going to be talking about the grace-based self, sort of the anatomy of the self and why caring for ourselves to cultivate harmony, to reflect God's own sense of community and love and harmony in our own lives can be of great benefit to our experience of life, to what we have to offer others, and to how we reflect God's nature and how we show off God's generosity. We'll have lives that are much more honorable and enviable, and people will be much more interested in what we think when they see that our health and our well-being is something that they find beautiful. If you're not taking care of your body and you're not taking care of your heart, and you're living a life that is unwell and miserable, you are not going to be a great advertisement for God's generosity and for the wisdom that Jesus came to bring us life and healing and connection with what is sacred. So today we're going to talk about the conscious mind. And I notice these are getting slightly longer, every one. That is just so Judy, but I'm just, again, offering them up like an appetizer tray. Take what you want, leave the rest, and I'm not going to be offended if you put something in your mouth and go like Tom Hanks in Big. You know, it's like, it's not all for you. I hope that it will be of some value to some of you, but it's just what I have to offer from where I'm at. And so I'm going to offer it up, and you can decide what to do with it. So, the conscious mind. We've talked about the unconscious mind of the body, the subconscious mind of the heart, where all that emotion and energy and passion is stored. If we can get our hearts on board, we are going to move forward. If our bodies and hearts are resisting us, we are going to be just entrenched in inner conflict and we'll drag our heels, and life will not be fun. So the conscious mind is very tricky. When we say that the heart is biased, the conscious mind is also biased. Once we look at something and say, yes, I agree with that, I think that's true, it then develops its own defense mechanism. Our thoughts defend themselves, our beliefs defend themselves. If we decide that something is true and later we learn something different, it's a little painful to set aside what was supposed to be working for what really works, because we are very enamored with what's supposed to work. Our conscious minds, if you look at elementary school children, if you look at junior high children, they're trying to figure out how to navigate things socially. They're trying to figure out, they're trying to figure out what their identity is, how to keep themselves safe, how to experience themselves as significant within whatever environment they're functioning in, how to belong, how to connect. All these things are the agenda of the conscious mind. And the conscious mind does not take over. It is layered on top of the subconscious mind, which is layered on top of the unconscious mind. And so we really, a lot of cooperation between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind creates a much easier life, a much more robust experience of reality. We're more likely to be encouraged rather than discouraged if our conscious mind and our subconscious hearts can agree. Even if they agree to disagree. Sometimes you know something is good, but you want something else anyway, and you really have strong feelings in another direction. We can agree to disagree. We don't need to, we're not robots. We don't program ourselves. But the more rapport, the more collaboration, the more we can find that our body gets what it needs most, our hearts get what they need most, and our minds get what they need most, even though we're not all necessarily getting what we want or what we think, what we're demanding because we think that that's going to help us. Because the body has its own agenda, survival, and the heart has its own agenda, to feel loved and connected and safe, and to understand its place in the world, there's this being that is trying to engage and to learn. And then the conscious mind has its own agenda. It wants to be right, it wants to be skilled, it wants to be independent. So children, there's sort of a collaboration between children and their environment, whereas the infant is completely dependent on its caregivers. And the toddler and the preschooler really can't manage their own emotions unless they have a parent who's willing to be an emotion coach. If the parent dismisses their emotion and either says, you shouldn't have those emotions, or no, emotions are scary, or your emotions are inconvenient for me, or how dare you feel that emotion because it threatens my sense of having dominion over you, any of those things, then the child will grow up to be an adult that isn't comfortable with his or her own emotions because they don't know how to self-regulate their emotions because they didn't have parents that practiced that and taught them how to do that. So the conscious mind needs to be informed by the soul. And what the conscious mind needs is a coach. It needs not an emotion coach, but like a tutor, like someone who is saying, okay, what did we really learn from that? And yes, that calls into question some of the things that we've always thought, but let's be open to the possibility that we can't get better results doing the same thing. So if we look at it from another point of view, even if it's a diverse, almost threatening point of view, we have the possibility of advancing ourselves, advancing our sense of identity, our sense of security, our sense of belonging, or our sense of significance. And that's the name of the game, the agenda for the conscious mind. And so we're going through, we're bombarded by advertisements, we are instructed by teachers, we are still accountable to our parents who control our environment at home, but we no longer take in information unfiltered. I've read a lot in the past of cognitive behavioral therapy because that's what was used for the treatment of depression. And in my early 20s, I read a lot of that in trying to manage my own energy and emotion state. And the first wave of cognitive behavioral therapy said, look at your thoughts and challenge them and say, is that really true? And if you argue with your thoughts, then you can then benefit from being talked out of those thoughts. And even that first layer of cognitive behavioral therapy worked for a huge percentage of people. It was a more effective treatment for depression than drugs. So that there's some learning there. But since then, what we've realized is that for some people, especially more, not oppositionally defiant, it's difficult. If it's not my idea, if I don't validate the information, then it is not taken into account for me. My conscious mind is very competent. I might be insecure, but I don't have low self-esteem. I have a very real sense of trusting my own judgment. As an adult, I now realize that God's judgment is better, and I realize that maturity for me is really about realizing that the more I realize what God wants for me is better for me than what I want for me, then the more my desires and God's desires overlap, the better life is. So I'm learning to trust God I need to be able to have a certain level of trust in myself in order to trust anybody. I need to be able to say, okay, it's safe to question what I think. It is safe to bring out these big feelings that I may have been afraid to deal with because my soul can comfort them and Jesus and the Spirit can offer wisdom to lead and guide them. And it is even safe to have struggles with my health. I would not choose this chapter of my life, but it is teaching me things I don't think I could have learned any other way. I would have considered taking care of myself to be selfish, but actually once I had to do it, once it became essential and became the predominant thing that I do in my life now, I'm not raising a small child at home, I'm not volunteering in prison, I am not running ministries at church, I am just processing my own experience. And some days that's all I do. And I have to tell myself it's still valuable. Investing in me is still valuable. And I'm learning things that help me to understand what other people are going through at a much deeper level. It's caused me to revisit things in my body and my heart at a much deeper level. Now that my spirit is more developed and more practiced and can tolerate the richness of experience that comes from checking in with a body I may have neglected and a heart I may have tried to talk out of its feelings and a conscious mind that I tried to say, no, don't think that way. Don't think those negative thoughts because that'll lead to discouragement and you know you don't get anything done when you're discouraged. So I now try to lead from my soul, informed by the grace of Jesus, with the Spirit-led, being inhabited by the Spirit of God. And instead of trying to talk my mind out of thoughts, I try to do things like evaluate, when I think this way, how do I feel? And when I think this way and feel this way, what does it give me the energy to want to do? And what am I motivated to do when I think these thoughts? And are the results of that desirable? Where will these thoughts take me? And it's more of a thing where I'll look at, like, if I look at somebody else's story, somebody else's experience, I am much more receptive to that than I am to an argument. It drives me crazy. I'm not on Facebook. Everybody's just constantly antagonistic and arguing, and I just can't stand it. I feel like all these conscious minds are trying to be right, trying to set everybody straight, and it's just not a harmonious, beautiful, encouraging environment to me. So my mind used to be an unhealthy, discouraging environment because there was so much inner conflict. I would have strong feelings in multiple directions. I would have various different objectives. I'm trying to look at things with my critical mind from multiple points of view because that's what critical thinking and education taught me. And it just made, my mind a crazy mess. So now instead of saying, oh, don't think that or don't feel that, I say, okay, what can we compare this to? What did Jesus do? What are some teachings, which most of Jesus' teachings were stories? What are some proverbs? What are some poems? What are some movies? What are some songs? What are ways that we can kind of sneak the information through the heart into the mind, or where the soul can coax the mind into saying, like, let's hold more gently these thoughts, and let's also hold at the same time some other thoughts and see if there aren't some benefits to those thoughts that we can't gain if we just try to be right and retain the thoughts and learnings that we're already defending, because that's what was imprinted or experienced when we were in elementary school and junior high. So the lessons of the body stay with us, the lessons of the heart stay with us, and the lessons of the conscious mind stay with us. And all three of those bodies of knowledge, they really can't be argued out of, but they can be led and guided and comforted and educated and reframed and tutored and coached and shepherded and mother henned and emotion coached. So that's the task. The task, once we inherit this foundation, which is a mix of what we've been taught, what we've experienced, our nuclear families, our educational experience, all those things have made some sort of hybrid on which we base our worldview. But our soul can go through and say, what if this really works? What if this is really beautiful? What did Jesus do in these circumstances? If we approach religion from the conscious mind, we are all about control, rules, being right, earning what we want, telling God, hey, I did it what you said, so you better make my life easier. I am entitled to having prosperity because I'm being good and I'm trying very hard. It's just not a way that I can live without a lot of conflict. But when we come at it with a gentle stewardship approach, then we can cultivate the kind of harmony that is much more attractive and a much less conflicted place to be. And it's really been an area that I have grown a lot, mostly because, like, those parents who came into those parenting classes, who came to those classes because they really, really were being driven crazy by their own children and their own parenting model. I had to learn to take care of myself because I hadn't done a good job. So I could tell myself I'm avoiding self-care and investing in myself because I don't want to be selfish and I'm too good and strong to need any of that. But the reality is I also sucked at it. So when I had to take responsibility for myself and start engaging with my body and my heart and my mind, there was a steep learning curve and it was not always comfortable. It's still not comfortable, but it's worth doing. It's sacred and it has a lot of benefits. So that's it for part 5. I'll talk to you later. Bye.